Hey everyone, Jeff Horowitz with Dennis in the Know, and we are here in Cologne, Germany at the 2025 IDS meeting. Today, I am with an inventor of an incredible product that I think is going to have application in most dental offices. At least I hope so. I know you do. I'm here with Fred Marcil, who is the inventor and engineer of something called Innobyte. And this is going to measure bite forces.
Yeah.
But if you would, tell us what was the impetus? What was the need that you saw in dentistry for a product like this?
Thank you for the intro. Initially, the need came from a dentist. A dentist I knew quite well. That was actually the father of one of my best friends. And he said, Fred, I wish I could get a number to show my patient how deficient their bite force is. He was doing a lot of implant cases, full arch rehabilitation, especially for patients wearing dentures. So he said, these patients, they really can't eat anything they want.
Right.
But most of the time, they don't want to admit it. They don't realize it. If we had a number, just like a glucometer, we can show them a scientific value that represents where they are. And so essentially I've said, that must be on the market already. But surprisingly enough, nothing was on the market. So I said, you know what, let me invent it. And I decided to just create this product, the Innobyte. And almost 10 years later, here we are at
Yeah,
IDS.
it takes a little while, but sometimes good things are worth waiting for because we have some occlusal products out there
Yeah.
that measure relative forces.
Correct.
So we're not really getting newtons or pounds in those measurements. We're just getting, here's where the bite is heavy, here's where the bite is way too light. It doesn't give us the information that we need. How do you see using a firm measurement in newtons? How do you see that applying to everyday occlusion and to everyday restorative dentistry?
So I think, relative measurement of the occlusion is half of the answer. It's really important because point of pressure points are representing early contact. Those are essentially stress concentration. They can lead to failure. However, we need to also consider the total magnitude of the force in Newton. Because, for example, we both have the same occlusion, and you have a 1,200 Newton bite force. I have a 650 bite force. You're going to break zirconia, and I won't.
And just for reference for our American friends,
Yes.
because that's where we come from, in pounds, how does that translate newtons to pounds? Just in case anyone doesn't have the quick app on their iPhone.
It's a correction factor of 4.4. So
Okay.
essentially, 250 pound force would equal to about 1,000 Newton.
Okay.
So it correlates in all the literature out there about bite force in human.
Okay. And at what point are we typically breaking a product like lithium disilicate versus zirconia?
So this is a really interesting question because it depends. It depends on the thickness, the fabrication, the
Of course,
finish.
yeah.
So it's a multifactorial effect of stress concentration. However, what we've created is essentially this, which is a bite force reference chart to guide clinician into a risk assessment approach. So a normal bite force would be something between 650 and 1,000 Newton. Now, anything over 1,000 Newton is considered excessive. This is where we see zirconia fracturing. We just had a case where at 1,200 Newton, a fixed case all-on-4 was fracturing zirconia with a titanium bar. We also had a case where all 6 screws of the fixed cases sheared off at about 1,100 Newton in the UK. So it's really important to consider the before and after force, especially on fixed cases. One of the ways clinicians are using bite force in this case is, for example, they're going to recommend a night guard as a preventative measure to avoid overloading the implants. Also, pre-treatment, if we measure bite force before, and we're really up there, Ivoclar was recommending us to increase by 2 millimeters the amount of zirconia, the thickness, to make it more rigid. So these are the kind of example of how we can help clinicians.
We could also just increase vertical dimension of occlusion as well, which is
Correct.
going to reduce some muscle force. There's a lot of clinical options when you have the right data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's critical also, for example, considering immediate loading or not. I think bite force should be measured before to make sure that the patients are not having an excessive bite force, because if they do, the risk of overloading the implants or the restoration is there.
Think about the applications to everyday dentistry. So we've all heard dentists that have said, oh, I've never had lithium disilicate fail. Well, I certainly have. I put it in the wrong cases, terminal molar.
Yeah.
If I suspect like a high bite force case, and again, that was suspicion,
Yeah.
and relative bite force was all I ever had. I did not have a quantifiable measurement
Yeah.
to say, okay, this might be a case where I'm going to choose zirconia over
Absolutely.
lithium disilicate, or this might be a case that we need to figure out some forgiveness here, whether it be through the muscles, opening vertical, or even using a softer material,
Yes.
that'll be shock absorbing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the good way to reduce bite force also and protect the restoration is, like you said, opening up the vertical dimension. That will automatically reduce the bite force, and we've tested it. And so at least during the nighttime, especially if there's any power function episode like bruxism or clenching, it's going to be a buffer there. We're going to be able to protect, especially again on fixed cases with excessive bite force. It is, I believe, critical to protect the restoration. So
This just sounds like an amazing product. If you all stay tuned, I think we're going to do another video on how this works in real life. I'll be your guinea pig. How about that?
yes, we'll see.
This is something that I absolutely think. I mean, and I walk around at this thing every other year, and it's really tough finding the gems
Yeah.
that you really know are going to stick. This is one of them.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah, Fred Marcil, Dentist in the Know.